Hey, here we go again. We're keeping up with some scratch tutorials. I will say my son, the baby, is right here, so I'm gonna have to pause here and there because well, babies need attention. Okay, right now we have this. We've coded this tank, if you will, and this tank shoots little bullets, red bullets. To if you want to shoot more or faster, you can we here is where we detect when you press on the space key and you create a clone of yourself. Creating the tank creating a clone of itself basically, obviously creates a copy of itself. And when we start as a clone, we sorry about that. It's been taken care of. Okay, so um, when you start as a clone, you switch the costume to a bullet. The bullet moves in the direction that the tank was pointing in. It moves 10 steps at a time until you reach the edge, at which point the clone is deleted. What I was going to say, let me get this back to the default. What I was going to say is that if you want to shoot bullets faster, you can decrease this. This is the amount of time, that's 2/10 of a second, 0.2 seconds, that you have to wait before you can create another clone. So if I put this, well, I guess first let me show you here how that looks. So there you see the bullets. That's the fastest you can generate bullets. If you decrease this to zero point 0.1, which is 1/10 of a second, I want you to see how these bullets, they're coming much quicker, out much quicker. So that's something that could be modified as maybe the levels, complexity of the program, where you go up one level, maybe your the ability to shoot decreases, or maybe you lose some health, so you can't shoot as fast. And we can make a variable that basically controls the speed at which you can shoot. Okay, let's get actually to the next part here, which is we're going to create an enemy. I was going to use the spider, but when I was playing around with it, it was actually just a little, what wasn't as great. So I'm going to actually draw here, paint a new sprite. I was helping a student that had problems with the motion of the tank, and I didn't realize this at the time, but after going through it with the student, we noticed that when you create a little sprite, make sure that it's centered here. Okay, make sure you center it here, because otherwise, the motion, like rotating, it's a little off. It's a little funky. So I'm gonna make an enemy sprite. It will be just like a little evil face, if you will. And you can be as creative as you want with these. Notice we have a circle here. I'll go ahead and put the little brush. I'll change the color here to, actually, you know what? Let me just make this much easier on myself. I'll put another small circles for eyes, and I can make those maybe yellow. And then right here, if I zoom in, I have better control of how I make these circles. I'll put a circle here, and then I'll put another circle here, kind of off, not quite at the same height. And then maybe we can do like a little mouth, like a evil mouth here. And again, we can choose the color here. I'll do red. And this is, I'm using the line here. And okay, that's good enough. So that's the little enemy sprite. That's good. We can give it a name. We'll just call here this um, enemy, for lack of a better name. Good. So now we have this enemy, and we need to write code for this enemy. Like, well, what is it that we want it to do? The first thing we need to note here is that we want this enemy to come at the tank from all kinds of different places. So I'm going to take the enemy and kind of put him off to this corner so that I can see what those coordinates are. Now it has to be like right within the screen here. Notice the coordinates here changed. So let me bring out a flag. And as soon as I click on the flag, I want it to go to. I want to try to get it out of the screen. So I need to go further to the left. So that would be, let me try negative 300 and higher up. So I'll put 250. Let me click on the flag. Notice it moves, but you can still see it. And I messed around with this, and I found that whatever you put here, that's still like out of the screen. It still doesn't quite um, go away. So we can get rid of this so that it doesn't show up there by going to looks and hiding it. So we're gonna go here. We're gonna hide. Now that gets rid of it. It's still there as a matter of fact, but we just can't see it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have this enemy, but because we want all kinds of enemies coming, so it's like zombies, if you will. They're coming at the tank, right? We want to make a lot of these, but we don't want to make a new sprite for every enemy, so we're going to be cloning this enemy. So when we click on the flag, we want to clone. Now we go to control here, and we're going to create a clone of myself. Good. Now, then the code for the clone has to be in this when I start as a clone. What do you want this clone to do? Well, I want this clone to show up, come at the tank from anywhere around, from obviously come out from anywhere. So we need to go to, and this has to be randomized. We'll just try something right now and we'll see how this works. We'll go to, and maybe we can do like right in the middle. Maybe that's, let's see, what's the middle? Well, obviously 0. 0 in the x coordinates, but we want it to be up here, so that would be higher than, let's put 250. Let me click on the flag, and we don't see the clone. Okay. Oh, you know what? I need to go here because when you create the sprite, the enemy is hiding. You've hit the enemy. And when you create a clone, the clone, it's also hiding. So I need to actually show the clone. So when I start as a clone, I want to show and go to this location. Notice it's right there. It's not quite outside of the edge, and I'm not sure that we'll be able to get it out here, but it's right there. Now, I wanted to move towards the tank. So that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to move and just follow the tank always. So I'm going to go here. Baby's here, okay? He's coming. I'm going to go to forever, and forever I want the clone to move. Well, I guess first I want it to point towards the tank. So point towards tank, and then move in that direction. And I don't want it to move too fast towards the tank. I'll move just one step for now. And let's play it. And notice that if the tank moves, the enemy starts, it follows it, right? Now you'll see that when the actual when they touch, they get stuck. And now you can't move. Well, you can actually, I just did, but you get stuck there for a little bit. Okay, perfect. So it's following the tank. Now what I want to code now is when I shoot it, I want it to die. I want it to just disappear. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll stop this. I'll say that if, and I'll put it within the same forever loop. Let me go here and control if, and then I'm going to go to sensing, and I have two options. If I'm touching tank, but that's the tank, and I don't want it to die when it's touching the tank. I want it to die when it touches the bullet. So instead, I'm going to do the color one. So I'm going to put here when touching a color. I need to show the bullet so I can identify that. So I'll go to costumes for the tank and click on the bullet, and then I'll go to the code for the enemy, and I'll click here, and I'll get this dropper and hover over the bullet. There it is. That's good. That's looking good. Now I'll go back to the tank and set the default costume to the tank. Now go to the enemy and look at the code there. So what happens if the enemy is touching red? Well, I want to do two things. I want to create a new clone because this clone is going to die. And when this clone dies, I want there to be a new clone. So I'll go in control. I'm going to create a clone of myself again, which is going to rerun this code for that clone. So this code is going to be run for any clone. As soon as a clone is created, it's going to run this code, and I want to delete this clone. So again, when I start as a clone, show yourself. Go to the middle of the screen on the top middle, point towards the tank, move one step, and this is iterating, so it's looping and looping and looping, so it keeps moving one step. But if you touch red, create another clone and delete this clone. Let's try it. It did. It happened. Notice. I'll kill it. Oh, I'm stuck. That, by the way, should give me like, it should maybe make me lose health. There it is. It dies. Now you see the bullet kind of still goes off. So I don't want that to happen. I don't. Oh, as a matter of fact, you can see that it looks like there's a glitch. Sorry for that background music there. Or maybe I froze. Okay, let me see here. Yes, my screen froze. I froze there for a minute. Let's make sure this still works. Oh, actually this is freezing me. Okay, hold on. Okay, so it appears that there's a glitch here. When if I kill the clone and then the other one immediately reappears behind it, that bullet, that stray bullet hits it, and it's freezing my program here. So, well, let's get rid of that. We're gonna go to the tank code, which is right here, and let's look at the code for the bullet. Notice here, the bullet is a clone. Okay, when you press on the space key, create a clone, switch custom to a bullet, set size, and repeat. Repeat until you touch the edge. Move 10 steps in the direction that you're pointing. And we're gonna do an if statement here. Basically, we're gonna see if we hit the enemy. If so, we move 10 steps, and then if we hit the enemy, I'm gonna go to sensing. I'm actually gonna sense if I've touched the enemy sprite. I want to delete this clone. So, which should delete the bullet. Let me move here just to verify that I don't get that same problem. Let's see here. The bullet should disappear. Okay, the bullet disappears, but the enemy sprite doesn't. I've encountered this problem already before. The problem that we have here is that the bullet touches the enemy and disappears, and the enemy doesn't have a chance to sense the bullet. It disappears so quick that the enemy itself doesn't sense the bullet. So we need to place a little bit of a lag here. When the bullet touches the enemy, if the clone touches the enemy, we do want to delete the clone, but we want to wait a little bit before we delete it. Because if we wait a little bit, then the enemy will sense the bullet. And so we'll go to control. We'll wait a fraction of a second, a tenth of a second, maybe should do it. 0.1 seconds. Again, this loop happens so quick that as soon as the bullet touches the enemy, it's gone. And then the enemy doesn't have a chance to sense the bullet. I keep getting here. Let me click. Let me set the costume because I clicked on the bullet. It changed. So let's go to looks here. Let's switch the costume to the tank every time we click on the flag. There we go. Clearly, I'm not good at this game. Notice that it takes the bullet is a little bit laggy here when it disappears. Takes it a little bit of time. That's okay. We can kind of play with that. Let me see if we can maybe make that just a tad better. Instead of a tenth, let's do 500ths, which is half of a tenth, 0.05. Let's see if that makes a difference. A little better. Okay. So now there's no glitch, so I'm not freezing here. Notice what was happening right there was that I was oh, there's the glitch again. That's odd, very odd. I suspect some sort of maybe infinite loop being engaged here, so it's odd. Um, but in any case, let's go ahead and continue here. We have the majority of the functionality we want now. What we want is for the enemy sprite to come from any direction, not just from up here. So we'll go here to this enemy sprite. This is a good example of um, what we can use a list for. So we've talked about my blocks before. I briefly talked about them. Let's go to variables and make a list. Now we've made lists in Python. We either call them lists or arrays. I'll call this start X, and I'll only make it for the enemy sprite. Notice that you have the list here, it's empty. And then I'll make another list called start Y. I'll get also just make this for the enemy sprite, not for all sprites. Now I need to initialize the list. So I'm gonna go to control, events. I'll drag a flag here. When I click on the flag, I wanna reset my list. So that means that I want to um, delete all. Where is it? Delete all of start X. Delete all of start Y. That means that if there's anything on the list, it's going to be gone. And then I want to add to start X. I want to add. What I want to add for the X is the boundaries. Negative 300. Notice right here, that's negative 300 and positive 300. So I want to add a negative 300. I also want to add, and I can just duplicate this, a positive 300, which are the bounds for the in the X direction, the left and right edge of the screen. And then I want to do the same, but for the Y boundaries. That would be 250 and negative 250. And these I want to add to start Y. Notice that it added them to start X. They show up. They showed up right here. But if I click on the flag, they should be gone. Good. So you see the contents right here of the two lists. They're the boundaries. So we need to randomize the first location, which is the go-to here. We need to randomize this to be a combination of these values, some sort of combination. Now, for that requires a little bit of problem solving. You need to start thinking, okay, is there a best way or something that I can implement right now that would work? So I'm starting to think, okay, if I get for a start X, if I get negative 300, it's going to be on this edge, and it could have any Y value between negative 250 and 250. If I start on the right edge, then that would be 300 would be this positive. And again, Y could be any value, or I can have the Y coordinate be negative 250, which is down here, and have any X value. And the same for the 250 is up here with any X value. So there can be kind of like 4 different combinations. Now, let me go ahead and do this. because we can try this. We go to operators and we can pick a random number. Now, if I do this, where I pick a random number, let's suppose that I pick a random number between 1, you see 1 and 2. So 1 or 2, I'll put here 2. And then we're going to go to the variables and we're going to, we can retrieve an item. Item 1 of start X would be negative 300. Item 2 of start X would be positive 300. But if I just randomize that, sometimes I'll get 1, sometimes I'll get 2. I can try putting this in here for the X coordinate. Notice that I'm going to do the exact same thing for the Y coordinate. But I'll pick here start Y. Now, the problem here is that this is going to make it so that I only ever get negative 300 and negative 250, which would be down here on the left corner, or positive 300, negative 250, which would be the right corner. So you basically only have the corners that you're working with. But let's see this in action. So let me go to variables and just kind of get rid of these lists so that they don't show up. So you uncheck them. And right now, they're going to come at me from corners, always. So not quite as random as I want it to be. Notice we've got in every corner. That's what we're missing the top right corner. We haven't quite gotten that one. As you can see, I'm not the best here. It doesn't seem like I've quite gotten ever a top right. I wonder if I'm going to get that top right corner. I should. Let's see. Maybe my logic here is 1 and 2, 1 and 2. It should work. Okay. So we don't quite have the implementation we want. And we need to do that. We need to get this. We need to code it. We need to come up with the algorithm here to determine the location that we want to go to. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm gonna let me pause really quick. Okay, so this is gonna be quite the algorithm, but let's kind of follow along here. So I have this if statement, and inside of the if statement, I've put this greater than operator. Checks to see if this number that is empty right now is greater than 0. I'm gonna then randomly generate a number between 0 and 1. So this makes a random number between 0 and 1. When you get 0, 0 is not less than 0. Sorry about that. When you get 1, 1 is greater than 0. So what you effectively have done is you've made it so that in theory you get a 50-50 chance of executing the if or the else. So there's going to be times when you execute the if, times when you execute the else. Now I'm going to put this inside. I'm going to make a function, which is going to, I'm going to go to my blocks. I'm going to make a block called start location. Notice I do not capitalize the L there. Okay, start location here. Notice my function is here. I'm going to put this if statement in here. So this is a random way of basically picking between two things. And what I'm going to do is I'm either going to pick between having the enemy show up on the left or right edge or the bottom and top edge. So that's what I'm going to do. And so if I'm going to copy here one of these. I'm actually going to get them both. I'm going to make another 2 variables. that I'm going to come in here to my variables. I'm going to make a variable called x for this sprite only, and then a y again for this sprite only. And this is where I'm going to store the x and y coordinates that I want my clone to start at. So I'm going to take this x, put it there, and then I'm going to put this y there. Now to determine what x and y are going to be, I'm going to do this set x to, and if I set x to either negative 300 or positive 300, remember this picks one of these values. Let me show you the list. It picks between negative 300 and 300. So I'll set x to that. When I set x to that, I want to set y. So I'll bring y in here. I set y to any number between negative 250 and positive 250. So I'm actually not going to use this. I'm just going to take that. Well, never mind, because I want to use that. I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to pick a random number between negative 250 and positive 250, which is the top boundary and the bottom boundary and the top boundary. So this makes it so that the enemy comes from the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen at any point up there. The other option, I'm going to duplicate this, is to kind of switch these around. Instead of, I'm going to set x to be anywhere along the screen, so that's between negative 300 and positive 300. And I'm going to have y be one of the two items in the start y list, which is either going to be just negative 250 or positive 250. Oh, that's not the ones I want to. Like that. So you're alternating. You can either start on the right or left edge and have y be any value, so it can be anywhere along the edge, or you can have x be any value between negative 300, so that would be anywhere along the screen horizontally, but y has to be 250 or negative 250, so that's top or bottom. So yeah, it is an algorithm, a little more involved. Now, when do I want to execute all this code? Well, I want this code to execute. It sets the x and y coordinates. I want it to execute at the very beginning. So I'm going to go to my block, and I'm going to, when I create a clone, right before I create a clone, I want to create a start location. And then every time the clone is like killed and I create a new clone, I want to again start, I want to execute the start location code so that, actually, let me put it here, so that x and y change. So x and y should be changing. They're the initial x and y coordinates of the clone. I want to see those change, and I'm going to check them on, and I'm going to play this. Notice that it seems like it's coming from the corner, but I'm expecting that to change as soon as I can kill this enemy. I bet you didn't sign up to see me play this game, huh? Okay. So I'm not getting quite the functionality I'm looking for. I'm gonna check this quick. Okay, I found the culprit. I realized this has been a lengthy tutorial. I had negative 250 here when I actually should have positive 250. So that was messing up with this y coordinate. So this should be positive 250. Now, if I do this, notice that I'll have clones coming up from everywhere, anywhere on the screen, on the edge of the screen. So you can see here that it's not coming from the corners anymore, or just the corners. Quite the algorithm, but it works. One thing to note here, and I'm almost done here, but very important to note that I actually have I put creating this my block and putting all this if statements inside it makes it so that I don't have to put all of this code in here or and duplicate it here as well because we need to initialize x and y to something. So when we execute the start location here, x and y are set to a value, and then they're used when the clone is created right here. And then when the bullet hits the clone, we execute again the code in start location, which again does this and resets x and y to a different random value. All in with that, it's a lengthy tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions.